In this slideshow, I'll review how to apply the basic training principles to create developmentally appropriate physical activity programs. Overload, progression, specificity, and individuality are applied through the use of concepts and strategies introduced in this presentation. The basic training principles are applied by using the FITT guidelines: frequency, intensity, time, and type. The frequency of a physical activity is how often a person performs the physical activity, measured in days per week. Guidelines for how many times per week to do the physical activity vary depending on the type of physical activity. Flexibility training can be performed every day. Cardiorespiratory training can be performed on almost every day, depending on the intensity of training and the individual's current level of fitness. And muscular strength and endurance training should be limited to 3 non-consecutive days per week, unless muscle groups are alternated, in which case it's most common for 2 consecutive days of exercise followed by a day of rest. The intensity of the exercise is how hard a person exercises, typically measured in heart rate for cardiorespiratory endurance and percentage of 1 rep max for muscular fitness. The intensity of the exercise depends on the individual's developmental readiness, personal goals, and current levels of physical activity and health-related fitness. Lower intensity is more enjoyable for students with lower levels of physical activity and health-related fitness, at least to begin a training program. Additionally, higher intensity training is more appropriate for middle and high school students, whereas play-based physical activity is most appropriate for elementary students, who benefit most from intermittent physical activity due to physiological limitations and cognitive characteristics. Next, time or duration is how long the physical activity is performed. Time is inversely related to intensity. Longer durations of physical activity require lower intensities to maintain optimal performance, whereas shorter durations of exercise allow high intensity bouts. Finally, type is the mode of activity a person chooses to perform for each component of health-related fitness. For example, muscular fitness can be improved by lifting dumbbell weights, cable weights, or resistance bands, pulling or pushing a sled, or carrying moderate weights for a relatively long distance, or by engaging in powerful, high-intensity physical activities such as competitive sports, plyometrics, or Olympic weightlifting. Physical activity can be defined in a variety of ways, and 3 definitions important to physical education programs are developmentally appropriate physical activity, moderate physical activity, and vigorous physical activity. Developmentally appropriate physical activity is activity of a frequency, intensity, duration, and type that leads to optimal child growth and development. For example, play-based physical activity with short bursts of moderate physical activity is appropriate for elementary students, whereas middle and high school students can perform continuous physical activity at moderate to high intensity in competitive gains in fitness training. Additionally, resistance training with free weights is appropriate for high school students, while elementary students might engage in modified push-ups, curl-ups, and basic gymnastics to improve their muscular fitness. Furthermore, moderate physical activity is defined as activity of an intensity equal to brisk walking, which can be performed for relatively long periods of time. Accumulating moderate physical activity during physical education and throughout the day helps students meet physical activity guidelines recommended by national health organizations. Finally, vigorous physical activity is defined as movement that is performed at an intensity higher than brisk walking, which may require frequent rest breaks. Vigorous physical activity is most appropriate for middle and high school students who can better thermoregulate and are more physically mature than elementary students, although vigorous physical activity is beneficial for younger students in short bursts. So a couple components of a typical physical activity lesson include a warm-up and a cool-down. A warm-up is the first component of a physical education lesson and is low-intensity physical activity done before a full effort, which should be organized to meet the goals of the main physical activity. Participating in a warm-up increases blood flow, raises body temperature, and reduces the risk of muscular injury and soreness. Warm-ups may include dynamic stretching, a game or activity, such as chasing and fleeing games for elementary students, or a self-directed warm-up, such as for high school strength and conditioning students. The cool-down is the last component of the physical education lesson, and is a period of light physical activity following exercise that allows the body to slow down and return the resting parameter. Physical education lessons should always include a warm-up and a cool-down, and physical educators should stress the importance of these components by explaining physiological processes related to physical activity. The following graphic is the kids' physical activity pyramid featured in the 4th edition of the Physical Best textbook. This graphic is all about increasing physical activity levels in young children in a less structured and more developmentally appropriate manner. At the bottom of the pyramid is moderate physical activity, which represents where children should spend the most time being physically active. At the top of the pyramid are flexibility exercises, which represent the final step of the pyramid in developing a health-enhancing level of fitness. In all, the pyramid promotes participation in a wide range of physical activities, which should be highly encouraged, especially in childhood. The teens' physical activity pyramid is very similar to the kids' physical activity pyramid, with perhaps the only major difference being the inclusion of resistance training and muscle fitness exercises. The kids' pyramid only lists use exercise bands, but young adults are physically mature enough to participate in basically all types of resistance training, including using free weights and cable machines, doing powerlifting, and participating in functional strength training. The order of the types of physical activity presented in the teens pyramid is the same as the order in the kids pyramid. So in all, the goal of health-related fitness training is to progress towards self-assessment and self-delivery of health-related fitness activities. This can be accomplished through exercise prescription, knowledge of exercise prescription, which is the process of designing an individualized physical activity program to improve health, health-related fitness, and sport performance. Exercise prescription uses the basic training principles and is responsive to the individual's current level of activity and fitness, exercise history, and goals. Thank you for watching.